Tonight on Emerging Technologies, we're going to talk about the types of biometric security in mobile devices. What is biometrics? Biometrics is the science and technology used to uniquely identify individuals based on their physical, chemical, or behavioral traits. The most common source of biometric security in mobile devices is physiological. What types of physiological biometric security are out there? The first on tonight's discussion is fingerprint scanning. With fingerprint scanning, we simply map out the ridges and valleys of one's fingerprint to later compare and contrast features and characteristics such as swirls, loops, arches, and lines to have a representation in comparison to the original scan to authenticate or identify an individual. What requirements does it have? Well, camera and multiple mirrors are used, or multiple cameras, and some very sophisticated software to map and monitor the fingerprint itself. Touch is required in fingerprint scanning, but due to these characteristics, we see very highly accurate fingerprint reading and authentication or identification. Certain factors may come into play to cause errors during the fingerprint scanning, such as moisture, dirt, and age of the individual compared to when the first fingerprint was taken. With high probability of change over time, constant updating may be required to have proper use of the fingerprint scanning in biometric security. The second form of biometric security is iris mapping. With iris mapping, it works by mapping out the features of the iris in relation to the pupil. Similar to fingerprint scanning, it also has ridges and valleys that can be monitored and compared to authenticate or identify an individual. What requirements does it have? A current era camera and some very sophisticated software. Touch is not required with iris mapping, but it still brings in one of the highest accuracy rates of the 99.92 percentile. Certain factors such as poor lighting may cause errors in iris mapping, but very few others can cause any kind of problems. There's also very low probability of change over time, as an individual keeps great care of their eyes and is well protected by the skull itself. With facial recognition, as the third and final topic of tonight's agenda, it uses different algorithms to scan and map out one's facial features, such as the nose, the mouth, the ridges over the eye sockets, the cheekbones or jawline, and spatial relations of each of these features compared also allows the programs and algorithms to better map out one's face to later authenticate or identify. Requirements for facial recognition are just the current era camera and some very sophisticated software. There is no touch required for facial recognition, yet we still see very highly accurate authentication or identification. Certain features such as lighting, age, or glasses and hair may cause errors in facial recognition. As glasses and hair may get in the way of the facial recognition program, age itself brings in a high probability of change over time. As individuals grow, scarring can happen, or different features may cause facial recognition to have errors. Constant updating may also be required for facial recognition. Who is participating in biometric security in mobile devices? Well, manufacturers such as Samsung, Apple, Google, and many more are all using biometric security in their current devices. The biometric industry includes more than 150 different hardware and software distributors, each with their own proprietary interfaces, algorithms, and data structures. The future of biometrics. In 2016, over 190 million devices were seen using biometric security. By the year 2021, we plan to have a staggering 600 million devices in use. One of the next physiological features of biometric security would be vein mapping, using the veins in an individual's hands as ridges and valleys that we find in fingerprint or iris scanning to have specific characteristics to map out the veins themselves to use for authentication or identification. The integration of behaviors into physiological traits such as keystrokes or voice recognition are also soon to be implemented in biometric security for mobile devices. Here are the sources of my research.